Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Cubit. Thank you for joining me tonight, and thanks for supporting these weekly conversations. If you are new to these weekly conversations, welcome to the family. We're so excited that you found your way here. Now, I need you to do me a really big favor. Would you please share this conversation just by hitting the share button right now? Would you do that for me? Share this conversation with your family, your neighbors, and your community. I promise you, the conversation you are about to be a part of will not disappoint, okay? Also, we are really encouraged by your feedback that you provide during and after the broadcast. So please feel free to engage with us during the live stream. It helps a lot. I need to also mention that all of the emails, the text messages, the countless inbox messages supporting these conversations have been really encouraging. So be sure to check out some of the past conversations, which are now being added to YouTube. So just search Conversations with Cubit on YouTube, subscribe, and browse through the conversations and find some of the ones you missed. You won't be disappointed. Special thanks, special shout out goes to Green Pasture Studios and my friend Richard and Amy James for hosting these weekly conversations. As you can see, we're not there tonight. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But Green Pasture Studios is out in Spencer, Oklahoma. And what is happening out there is amazing. Yes, they are making full-fledged movies out in Spencer, Oklahoma. Look them up and learn all you can about the work they're doing out there. You won't be disappointed. Now, as you know, I only have 3 simple goals for these weekly conversations, and one is to add value to people and to my community. 2 is I want to inspire you to believe in what people and communities can become when we're willing to work together. And last but not least, 3, love people, period. Period. All this means is I want you to be inspired. I want you to get useful information and resources, and I want to celebrate individuals, groups, and organizations who are making a positive impact on our community. Every conversation will be about information, inspiration, and hope. Now, let me tell you where we are tonight. We've been here before, and it's called Spiked Coffee, located at 1732 Northeast 23rd in Oklahoma City. I've been dropping in here for the last couple of months and absolutely love it. So I have to share this place with my community. Spiked is a coffee concept and community space. Black-owned, community-connected, serving coffee by the people, for the people. I'm talking about coffee, cocktails, or both. And what's really cool is the owner is intentional about holding space for community needs. In fact, my friend Gregory II from Poetry and Chill will be here February the 4th, providing live music and entertainment from 9 to 11. Now you got to get tickets, so call ahead and get that arranged. And this place right here is a great place ran by the friendliest people on earth. So do yourself a favor and come check them out as soon as you can. Now let me ask you a question. Have you ever spent any time thinking about how our city is designed or who planned it out? Who planned out the spaces we now live in? How much thought and intentionality goes into culture and the people as our spaces are designed? Well, my guest tonight has spent a great deal of time thinking about all of this and much, much more. My guest tonight is Miss Vanessa Morrison. Morrison is a planner and community development professional who is dedicated to empowering her community. After receiving her master's degree in regional city planning with an emphasis on community and economic development, Vanessa's professional and academic opportunities have led her to design and lead approaches to address inequity challenges for marginalized groups domestically and internationally, consulting community projects, collaborate on initiatives, and activate both spatial and social environments. She is also highly experienced in leading teams while developing culturally responsive engagement strategies that reach into diverse range of communities, including, but not limited to, underserved groups, business spaces, the nonprofit sector, state and local governments. Additionally, Vanessa is the co-founder of 2 nonprofits, she's so busy, Open Design Collective, where she supports Black neighborhood spaces, and Cut It Forward, an organization focusing on the ethnic hair and skin care needs of children of color in foster and adoptive care. We have so much to learn from this powerhouse community leader. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome none other, the one and only, Miss Vanessa Morrison. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
Oh,
I've been a fan of the series for a while, so I feel like being here, I'm like, I made it. Like, I'm
you are
cool
it.
now.
I'm it.
Here.
We made it because
I
you said
made
yes.
it.
You said yes. Tell me,
I
you've
made
been here
it.
before?
I have a couple of times. I love this space. It is so cute. I love the concept, the spiked coffee. I just love it. And it's just great for like meetings and just day-to-day work.
Day-to-day.
Working space. It's just awesome to have this on the east side.
East Point, you kind of have a special place in your heart for East Point.
Absolutely.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
This is such a wonderful development and project. And to me, what I think is going to be an inspiration for how we can do more development here on the east side. Just the intentionality behind the retailers and businesses that were selected to be here, the model and the fact that tenants get to build equity into this space, which I think is a big barrier for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? You know, it's so difficult to run a business and worry about income and clients and keeping your doors open. And then on top of that, a lot of tenants are renting their storefronts, their physical spaces. Mm-hmm. So at any given point, they're at the mercy of the landlord, raising the rent, gentrifying them out.
Who's going to be next door?
Out. Right, yeah, exactly. Who's going to be your neighbor?
Right.
So the fact that that protective factor has been put in where people can build equity and permanency here and really sustain their businesses is just such a beautiful thing to see, and I come over here every chance I get. I love it.
I'm here, you know, if somebody says, let's wonder where to meet.
Yes.
I give them
Spike coffee or Culture Coffee.
Yeah, Culture Coffee.
We have options
depends on
now.
Which one is closer to
right.
Them. Yeah. That's
love
it.
both.
I love them both. Now I know we're going to talk about space. Mm-hmm. I know we're going to talk about design.
Yes.
But we were talking earlier, and I've learned that, and it's in your bio too, right? That you do some stuff for foster and adoptive children, particularly children of color.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about that nonprofit first, because although I'm interested in design, boy, everybody knows, if you know me, I am interested in people.
Yes.
And little kids and how they grow up.
Absolutely.
And I know it's our future. So talk to me a little bit about what brought this concept to be.
Yes. So it actually comes from a very personal experience of mine because I grew up in the foster care system. I went into foster care at age 13 with my siblings and aged out. And I had a couple of different placements. I had family, kinship, what's known as a kinship placement when you're with biological family, and I had some other traditional placements, moved around a couple of times. But it was really, even as a teenager, that the ministry of Cut It Forward was put on my heart because I was living the experiences of a Black child in a system that was not designed with my needs in mind. And when I
love that you called it a ministry.
That's how it feels. It feels like a calling on my heart because I'm very busy and there's a lot going on, but just Cut It Forward is something that I'm committed, along with a phenomenal board, to see it flourish, it thrive, and meet as many families as we possibly can. And so at 14, I would think, a year in, I started really noticing these injustices and inequities that I was experiencing because of my culturally specific needs, being treated like, my culturally specific needs as it relates to my hair and skincare were not really a necessity, people not understanding how to take care of those needs, dealing with hair breakage and skin issues and being bullied at school. And this was not just my experience, this was my siblings' experiences and pretty much every other kid that I knew in foster care that was a child of color, a Black child specifically, were going through these same issues. And when I was a little bit older, while still in foster care, I actually started getting invited to speak at conferences and panels about my experience, just to help educate professionals and caseworkers, to help them be just a little bit more well-rounded in how they work with children in foster care. And I would speak very vocally and openly about what it was like being a Black child, and again, not having those needs met. And not only did it make me look bad, but it made me feel bad, and helping people understand that at a deeper level.
So help the audience understand what's the difference between caring for a Black child and caring for a white child or a non-child of color when it comes to their skin and their hair.
Yeah. So I think, for one, I want to be very clear that in the Black community, we do not just have one hair type or one skin type. I think there's like this misconception that we all have the same hair and skin, but that is not true. There are several different textures, hair patterns, curl patterns, skin types. I have a twin sister and she has a completely different hair grade than I do, and we're twins. And so I think that's a big misconception, that people think they can apply the same routine, the same methods on the same hair, when that's not how it works. And so I think there's just a lack of education, a lack of understanding. And what really is tragic to me is that there's a lack of the cultural understanding, because in the Black community, hair care and skincare, as we know, is not just about an aesthetic or a style. It's about how we care for one another. It's how we culturally bond. It's how we show love. And so when kids go into the foster care system, they are automatically, unless they go into a placement where they have people who understand that, they are automatically disconnected from that cultural connection. And so what Cut It Forward tries to do is help people understand, yes, we're here to help you teach the skills and understand how to maintain and care and keep things healthy, but also understand the cultural component and be intentional about keeping your child connected to their culture, because just because they went into foster care doesn't mean that their identity or culture should be lost in that process. And so helping people understand those nuances.
Yeah, when you talk about the connection between Black people and not just the hair and the skin, but the process in which we connect doing hair and skin. I don't, and I'm older than you, but you ain't, so I don't know if you know, you remember this stuff, but back in the day, people used to have dandruff. I don't think that people have dandruff no more.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
I don't know if they have
Why do you think it's gone?
I don't know. I don't hear anybody, okay, so I don't hear anybody complain about dandruff anymore, or maybe they're just hiding it, hiding it.
I think there's more products out here.
There's a lot more products.
There's more options than back in the day.
Okay,
Yeah.
but so the way you treated dandruff when, and I've looked back on it with fond memories now, but there would be women in our family that say, okay, you're my treatment for the dandruff. Come scratch my scalp.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've heard people do that. I haven't done that.
I know,
I haven't had
okay,
anybody
so that's
scratch
why
my
I'm
scalp.
updating
I feel
myself.
like I need to set that up. It sounds like a really great experience.
But
I've never had anybody scratch
as
my
gross
scalp.
as it was, as terrible as it was, and do I want to do it again today? No. But I can tell you that yes, there was some connection to there. I mean, that's a fond memory. A lot of things was happening during that. It was the right and the wrong. Even the boys had to learn how to, a little bit, to the very minimum, how to part hair. I mean, it's not straight, but it would be parted.
It was there.
You had to do it because that's how you had to scratch, and then how you grease a scalp. You know, that kind of thing. I also remember all of that.
Yeah.
I remember the smell of when the hair was being pressed.
Yeah.
I remember the smell.
That's a very distinct smell.
It's a very distinct smell, and
exactly
and the curl, you know, and the routine of having to get it done on a particular day and time, and grandma was involved.
Yes, it's
and
a ritual.
It was a lot of. It was in the rollers.
Yep, all of that. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I remember all that. So all of that is specific, right? That's not happening, except for in our culture. In Black culture.
Yeah, I think there's other cultures that have those type of practices and routines. I know in a lot of Native American cultures, braiding is very sacred and is a very common tradition. So I think other communities also have those experiences, but I think because our hair in itself is already so misunderstood, that we have to be even more intentional about making sure our children are being cared for in those ways, or unless they won't be. So
okay, so what's the and I know I didn't give you any prep for these questions because they're just coming to me as we talk. Okay, so foster parent, white foster parent is all of a sudden taken in for filling a need to foster a Black girl. What's the handout? Here's the number one rules you need to know. Here are the things you need to know. What's the basics?
Yeah. So that's something that we actually teach in our workshops at Cut It Forward, is like, what are the basics? And again, it looks different per the hair type. So I would say the first step is understanding what kind of hair type you're working with. And something else that's really unique about Black hair is that usually we will have 2 to 3, even more hair types on one head.
One head.
So you might be working with 2, 3 different hair types and need to understand the care that is needed for those 3 different hair types. We kind of teach the theory that you want to work with the dominant hair type. So whatever hair type you have the most of is pretty much going to be what you want to work with, and it will pretty much take care of the other needs. But you need to understand what kind of hair you're working with, because what works for my hair won't necessarily work for somebody else's hair. So education is key. And Cut It Forward, we try really hard to make that information accessible. So we do the workshops. We also have a digital library on our website, because when we first started, and even to this day, we had so many people from all over the state, all over the country, even someone from the UK. I don't know how people are finding us. The algorithm, I guess, is in our favor, but people are reaching out saying, hey, can you teach us how to start Cut It Forward in our community? Can you teach a class? Can you come out? Can we fly you out? And I'm like, we're still trying to build up. We're trying to get our structure together.
Yeah.
But here, we built that library intentionally to help make information accessible to people who cannot physically be here at our workshops. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's a journey. And so we really try to help people understand the skill set and create a community for these families to have just conversation, not be judged, and to learn together in a safe environment.
So I got to ask you this. So we're talking about the hair, and we're talking about people that are really concerned and want to do it right.
Right.
And you got to believe that foster parents are wanting to do it right.
Absolutely.
So I've been a foster parent. You're not just doing
Yes.
it. A lot of people say they're doing it just for the money.
Right. No.
No. But so they're doing it because they care,
Yes.
or a need in the family has popped up. And so you talked about injustice in the way you were treated. Talk about how injustice can happen unintentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it happens unintentionally all the time, but it doesn't mean that the injustice doesn't exist.
Okay.
And so I think it's important to have transparent conversations about where can we learn, where can we train, where can we strengthen our programming, because even though no one's purposely trying to hurt anyone, doesn't mean you're not hurting someone. Doesn't mean that someone's needs are going neglected because you didn't mean to. So I think people just need to be open and honest about where they need to learn, how they need to learn, and being proactive about making sure they have access to that education. And I think systems can do better too, right? Like something that I learned about Cut It Forward, as we were starting Cut It Forward, something I learned about the system is that there's really no mandated training or required training for people to understand culturally specific needs as it relates to Black hair and skin. And so when you're a foster parent, you could get a child in your care tonight, depending on how you make yourself available, and you would have no idea how to approach taking care of them and their hair. And so I think there's system changes that need to happen. And I think that there needs to be more investment in programs that help people understand and provide the services so people can learn. And because I know people want to learn, they want to do better, they just don't necessarily know how. And even with all of the Google and YouTube and articles out there, it's almost more difficult because there's now more content that you have to navigate through and try, and well, this didn't work, and now I gotta try again. Now I'm getting discouraged. Well, now, you know what? Now I'm gonna give up, and I might not even foster a Black child anymore because I just can't handle the need. Or
This sounds like a full-time job for you.
It's a job. It is. Luckily,
how many people helping you?
We have a board of 6 people,
Okay.
And then we have a part-time employee. Thanks to a grant, we were able to hire a part-time employee, and we're working on building it up because it is a full-time job, and the need outweighs the capacity.
What about the opportunities to volunteer? Because I'm thinking of somebody in my household. She probably knows who I'm talking about. My wife, who is excellent with hair, loves to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's a connection point for all the girls and some of the guys in our family. So what about volunteer opportunities, and what would you need a volunteer to do?
Yeah, so with our workshops, we're always looking for volunteers, people especially that have experience with hair care, with teaching, with mentoring and training. We love those type of volunteers because our part-time employee is leading all of those workshops, and it's really a 2 to 3 person job. And we have had guest speakers and consultants come in, and hairstylists and barbers come in and be guest speakers and help train, but we're always looking for individuals to help because usually those professionals, their schedules are very limited. They work, when they're not working, they're not able to make money. Saturdays are their busiest days. Well, Saturdays is our great day for us to do workshops. There's a lot of conflicts in being able to work with a licensed professional. And while we still are able to bring those professionals in, it would be great to have even more volunteers that are ready to go out and do trainings and workshops for families. So cutitforward.org is where they can connect with us.
Cutitforward.org.
Just follow us and communicate with us and get involved.
Yeah. What do we need to know about? Anything else we need to know about that you want to share about growing up in the foster care system? How do we help foster parents? How do we help the system? How do we, based on your experience, what do we need to know? Yeah.
Well, I would just say that, something I was reflecting on my way here actually about something that what I wish people understood about the foster care experience is that foster care does not define who you are. And I think that too often people associate the stigma with people who have gone through the system. And even people that I've told, I grew up in foster care, you get some really different reactions from people based off of who it is. I've seen people cry, I've seen people
oh my God, what happened to you?
What happened to you?
Yeah, right,
or you, no way, there's no way that you went through that. And it's just kind of disappointing because I feel like people, again, they define you by what you went through. And that is not who I am. It's something I went through and experienced. It definitely was integral in shaping who I am today and what my values are and what my purpose is in life, but it is not my whole identity. It's something that happened to me. It's not the full me. And I think that people just need to understand that better, and we got to do better as a community to support kids in the system so they can grow up and transition into a healthy adulthood. So
And that's a whole conversation.
Yeah.
That is a whole conversation.
It is.
Okay, so you went from, obviously you became passionate and started speaking about your experience in foster care. How do you go from that powerhouse of a job, right, and responsibility to speak for not only for you and your siblings, but you were speaking for a whole lot of kids in the foster care system. But how do you go from there to designing culturally specific spaces?
So that's like a big leap. So
Like,
it was a journey. So after I was doing the advocacy work while I was still in foster care, grew up, started Cut It Forward, was doing that work, still doing that work. But professionally, that's always been like a passion project of mine, but it was never my full-time job. So a full-time job, has always been in the social services field and working specifically in the domestic violence space and supporting children and women and men and families transitioning out of abusive situations and going into what we hope to be, a healthy transition into independence. And so in my early 20s, one of my first jobs in that space was running by myself. I cannot believe this. Running a domestic violence shelter by myself.
Where was this?
In Norman.
Okay.
And so there was like a morning shift, a afternoon, evening shift, and an overnight shift. And the afternoon to evening and the overnight, you worked by yourself. I don't know if it's still like that, but I was like 22, 23 working by myself.
Wow.
And I was working, when you're working in a domestic violence shelter, you get calls all throughout the night and you are working to help people in a lot of situations save their life and get to safety. And so I was there for 4.5 years. I promoted and worked in different roles, but working in that shelter, I think, was really when I started asking myself, why is it so difficult for people to thrive in their neighborhood, in this community? And especially a community like Norman, right? Like very well resourced, very well, thought out community, great leadership, a lot of resources there, but still people were struggling. And we would be working so hard at that agency to support people, help them transition, get to safety. Okay, we got you, we helped you get a job, we helped you get your kids enrolled in school, we're helping you get into housing. And they would leave from one adversity and go into another because the kids weren't able to go to a good school. They couldn't afford a decent home. It was difficult for them to get anywhere because they didn't have a car and the bus route didn't reach their neighborhood. So many barriers and layers that, in my opinion, really, when we talk about the cycle of domestic violence and the 7 to 11 times that people have to go back before they're able to fully break away, that's part of the reason why people go back. That's part of the reason why people go back, because it is so difficult for people to live a decent quality of life on a minimum wage salary. And so I just started getting so frustrated. Like, I was loving my job. I was very rewarding, loved the agency, but I was like, we gotta do better than this. Like, what can I do to help be a part of those conversations and how our cities are shaped, planned, resourced, and designed?
And for some reason you landed on spaces.
Yeah.
So, because for me, I'm hearing that, but I don't know why my mind would not have landed on the environment, like the spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And mine didn't either. I didn't even know what a city planner was before I went to city planning school. I had no idea. I just got online one day. I think I was working with the family. I got home like, this is it. I knew I wanted to get my master's degree. I was planning on going the licensed professional counselor route, but decided that wasn't really for me. But I wanted to, again, kind of understand at a deeper level, why are cities like this? Why is it so hard to live in the city, in the neighborhood? And so I got online, I was Googling graduate degree programs, and I found regional city planning. And at OU, and I loved the description of how planners focus on communities holistically, the social issues, the physical space issues, the economic issues. And so I was like, man, maybe this kind of sounds intimidating, but I don't know what a city planner is, but maybe this is a pathway for me to do the kind of work that I hope to do in the future. So I contacted the department. They had me come in and shadow a couple of classes. Next thing you know, I was applying and I was in the program and
Wow.
graduated. So I would have never known. I would have never thought either like city planning could be a mechanism to help address some of these adversities that people are living through and going through. But after going through the program and learning more about the profession, I'm like, yeah, this is here. And we need more people represented in these professions.
Give me an example. How long have you been doing it now?
City planning or
Yeah.
in that field. So I've actually been working on projects since I graduated from college.
Right.
But full time, like in this position, in this space, I'm going on 2 years.
All right. So give me some examples
Mm-hmm.
of where this has really mattered in our day-to-day lives.
Yes.
Like this space was intentionally done for this reason,
Mm-hmm.
and this was the impact of it. Had it not been done intentionally,
Right.
this might result. These type of results might happen. Can you give us?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Yeah,
Okay, I know it's a tough question.
No, that's a really great question. I think, I would like to focus on this development, the space that we're in here today,
Okay, East Point.
Spiked Coffee, yes, East Point. And again, I just think this was a commercial strip. This is a revitalization development. This is not a new, it looks like a new construction. It's so beautiful and
Yep, it was already
sparkling and beautiful. It was already here.
Yeah.
And it had businesses, beloved businesses, and I don't really know the backstory about historically what happened, but essentially this commercial strip was laid vacant for many years, fell into serious disrepair, and was really like a point of pain, I think, in the community, especially with the businesses that were here. Family Affair restaurant, everybody loves Family Affair, and just the vacancy in it's almost like the space was forgotten about.
Yeah.
And so when the development team came in and revitalized the space, it brought in this energy and this hope and inspiration for the community. It's not just about the businesses, it's about the representation of we matter, investment belongs here. We deserve nice things. We deserve a coffee shop where we can come and sit and work and have conversations. We deserve kindred spirits to be able to go have a cocktail after work and not have to go to another part of town. Just come over in our community and enjoy these spaces. And the fact that they were able to create a model, again, that helps people build permanency here, I think is just such a beautiful example of how community investment can be done in a very intentional way. And it's brought in services, it's brought in amenities. When we think about Northeast OKC, there is a severe lack of amenities and services, which makes it hard for people to live over here full time because there's not a lot of options for you to get your basic needs met or even have joy and share community and come together and have fun. And so to me, this is a symbol of hope for the future, and it's creating opportunities for entrepreneurs to build wealth. It's creating spaces for people to come together and have joy and fun, and it's serving the community in a way that really hasn't happened in many, many years.
Right. So you're working on projects now
Yes.
that we will hopefully see later
Yeah.
here in Northeast Oklahoma City. And you specifically talk about A Street in south of A Street. Talk about that.
Yes. So a little bit of history about this area. So Urban Renewal is a federally funded program that took place across the country in the 60s
And it's
and
been
80s.
a pain point.
Yes, absolutely.
Depending on who you ask
Yeah.
in Northeast Oklahoma City, like they hate it.
Yeah.
Like older people.
That lived through it.
That lived through it,
Yeah,
yeah.
and saw the community before, during, and after. It is a trauma that still is felt in this community 50 plus years later. And so Urban Renewal is a program that cities across the nation were implementing, and they were given federal funds from the federal government to clean up blighted or decaying areas of their neighborhoods. And so a lot of cities actually did not take the funding and did not accept the program, but a lot of cities and most bigger cities across our nation did. And what a lot of communities have done that did with that program, they took the funding and cleaned up blighted areas of the community. Well, that disproportionately impacted the Black community. And so
In most cities,
like it's very common when you look at most cities, the same thing that has happened on the east side has happened across our nation, unfortunately. And so a lot of cities took these funds and demolished and erased our built spaces, our homes, our businesses, in some cases, complete neighborhood areas, and purchased the property that those areas sat on. And so many, many years later, the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Alliance still owns several properties south of Northeast 8th Street and recognizes the need to be very intentional about releasing this land back into the community in a way that preserves culture and history, serves and benefits community members, and helps create a community where people can thrive and flourish. And so They hired my firm, Open Design Collective, to lead a community engagement initiative, collaborate with them and Northeast OKC community members to create a vision for the future development of the neighborhood spaces south of 8th Street that Okura owns. But something that's really important to recognize about that project is that south of 8th is also heavily privately owned. Okura is not the only entity that owns land in that area.
So there's private owners.
Yes,
there's
entities,
urban renewal.
it's
mixed up in there, and it's not. And sometimes there's not any been rebuilt. It's just like
a lot of vacancy. A lot of vacancy. Yes.
Yeah.
And so we are working very intentionally with community members to create this vision, to listen to the stories, the history, the connections, the culture. What do you remember about 4th Street? What do you remember about your neighborhoods? What do you feel is a loss to you? How do we restore that in the ways that we can? And we may not be able to make it look like what it did once before, but how can we create a vision where you feel heard, seen, and valued, and we're including your ideas and your goals in this plan?
What have you learned digging around in the history and the culture that says made you go like, God, people should know this?
Oh my goodness, I would say the history of 4th Street. I feel like I was mildly familiar. You know, I knew it was a commercial corridor, the Jewel Theater. You know, that beautiful asset that's still standing to this day. But I didn't really know how dense it was. And when you look at historic maps and you see 4th Street and all of the businesses, the barbershops, retail, pharmacy, I mean, it's just crazy to see the contrast between now when you see a lot of vacancy versus the historic maps and how it was a thriving commercial corridor that was serving that community. And so I'm just hopeful and excited to know that we could come back to that.
Where did it run? Did it run from Martin Luther King to where, or where did that corridor kind of start and stop?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if it went all the way to Martin Luther King, but yeah, it was
Eastern back then, which was Eastern.
Connected to Deep Deuce,
Okay.
and I think further east, but I'm not quite sure exactly what the boundary is.
Yeah.
And then also the construction of the highway, which was initiated by urban renewal, also towards the community and caused a lot of harm, displacement.
I-40.
235.
235
Yes,
on the other side. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of spatial trauma that has happened, and we are doing what we can to help the community be heard and lead the process of visioning for the area.
That's good. All right. So what
should we know? Like, here's what an old man told me this a long time ago. And I'm calling him an old man because he's older than me.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not trying to. Right. He's an old man. And I was at a community meeting, and he stood up and made some comments, and he sat back down by me, and then he started a side conversation with me. And this is what he said, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, "I was a part of a community years ago, where the city planners were 20 years ahead of us, and they came in and they already had a plan for the areas that we lived in, and they started buying and doing and planning and building, and when we showed up to the meetings, our voice didn't mean anything because they were so deep already in the planning process that we were just frustrated because they were running over." So I guess my question is,
how much truth is it that city planners are way ahead of our right now in planning? And if so, where do we and us, the community, where do we engage in that so far ahead plan?
Yeah, so that plan that he was talking about is what we call a comprehensive plan. And most cities do establish a comprehensive plan because it's a visioning tool to help guide the goals of a community. So when we talk about revitalization, economic development, walkability, health, resources, a lot of that has to be planned for the future and forecasted, especially as it relates to population trends and growth. You want your city to be thinking proactively so it can plan for the changes and the transitions of the community. And what would be the best practice is that communities would be engaged to inform that plan so people have a voice in what that future visioning can look like. But what a lot of cities have neglected to do is do a good job of engaging people, or not using the right strategies. Or maybe you held a town hall, but you held it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and no one was able to go because everybody's at work.
Right.
Is with their kids. And so cities, and I'm not just focusing on OKC, but just nationally, have to do better. We have to do better about making sure that we're making engagement possible, accessible, that is reaching into the communities that we know have not been as engaged and have not had their voices heard and have not been able to be part of the process. And we have to be able to be including people at a better rate than what we have historically. But comprehensive plans are common, and they should be adaptive and flexible to the needs of the community. They should include the community's voice in the planning of it.
Right. So our comprehensive plan, you're happy with it, Oklahoma City?
Yeah, so I haven't read it cover to cover, but
right.
It's online. It's available on the city website, Plan OKC. And yeah, I think there's a lot of great things in it. I'm excited about South of 8th because I think that's going to add to the visioning and the planning for this area. And I think we have to have more opportunities for engagement to make sure everybody has a sense of ownership and has a stake in the process and doesn't feel planned on behalf of, but feels included in part of the plan.
Yeah, one thing I don't want, I mean, I understand the need for representation in the job that you do, black space, kind of a collection of people that are thinking intentionally about the culture of African American in wherever town,
right?
And trying to preserve and highlight those areas and protect them.
Yes.
What I don't want to do, or what my fear is that we're not in being inviting. That we're saying we want to keep this side of the tracks as this side of the tracks. Are we thinking about, yes, we want to be culturally specific, but we also want to be inclusive.
Right.
How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, for one, we have to get out of these binary ideas that it has to be one or the other, or just because people are doing culturally specific work means that we don't care about anybody else or no one matters. It's almost kind of like the all lives matter argument.
Right.
Like, no one's saying that all lives don't matter. We're just saying ours do too. And how do we make sure that we're included in the all lives? You know what I mean? So it's not either or, it's everyone, but we have to be sensitive to the fact that many communities of color, and with my work in the Black community, there have been so many disproportionate harms and disparities and exclusion that we have to be strategic and focus on how we make sure that community can heal, can thrive, can be involved, can build trust, even want to be engaged in processes like with city planning. And so we just recognize the intention that has to go into that kind of work. Not that we want to exclude anybody else, but even how we're kind of running South of 8th, we have broad community engagement that we're leading with the whole community, anybody open to anybody.
Northwest Oklahoma City, Northeast, everybody.
We are targeting Northeast OKC, but anyone can come. And as a matter of fact, we had our first open event and there were people who were not people of color who came to that, and we were happy to see them. And then we've also established a tactical committee of about 25 to 30 individuals who represent, whether they're residents or stakeholders, business owners who work in the community, they represent the community, and it is Black. And so why we kind of approached it that way is that because of the trauma and the loss and the harm that's been done in this community, you can't just throw people in a room.
Right.
I mean, you do this kind of training and about, we got to move at the speed of trust, and we can't do it like that. I mean, it's just not going to work. And so how do we position people to understand process, which is what we're doing. We're not just engaging, but we're educating people on the process of what goes into neighborhood development, why have these challenges happen in the community, and what are the opportunities? How do we think about this? And making sure that people feel positioned to be able to engage with other groups as well. And so we're working on including everyone, but we're moving in a way where people don't feel like they're being bombarded, like where they can feel like they can speak openly and safely, and that we're being sensitive to what they've experienced and the trauma that's happened in this community.
I feel like we got to get young people excited about what you do.
Yeah.
But with young people, they need something tangible,
right?
To touch, feel, taste, see.
Yeah.
And when you talk about South of 8th Street and you go in that area, you see the Jewel Theater. You know, you've seen it that way your whole life. You don't see much going on next to it. You don't have any connection to the history per se. How do I help get young people excited about the future of, say, 8th Street or Northeast Oklahoma City or what you do?
Right. That's a good question. So that's something we're
know that's
working
tough.
on.
I
I
know
know
that's
that's
tough.
something
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
working on too. We have to have more representation in the field, and we want to be able to connect with young folks because they're the next generation, and we need them to know about these different fields so they can come in and be the planners and architects. Last time I checked, there's people undergoing the licensure process, but as far as licensed architects, black architects in Oklahoma, there's only 4 last time I checked, and this was like a year ago, and there's 1 woman. So there is an extreme underrepresentation, and so we have to do better about making sure that kids have a connection to learn, to touch, see, and feel. How does this profession work, and how does it connect to what I want to do as an adult? But something that we're exploring with South of 8th that I'm really excited about, especially because all the vacancy, while that is a trauma and it's a symbol of loss, it's also an opportunity to, how do we activate these spaces? Because development can take 100 years.
Yes.
You know, it's not like South of 8th is going to be done and then development is coming tomorrow. That's a process. It requires a lot of different financial mechanisms and a lot of work. But we have been exploring what is placemaking, like a temporary use of a public space. How can we activate some of these spaces to get kind of excitement built and us back in the area experiencing it and having fun? So there's a lot of cool models out there where you can do pop-up events and drive-in movies and all types of fun things to activate a space. Even if the permanent infrastructure isn't there, you can still do a temporary act and event. So we're exploring that.
Do nonprofits get involved in that? How do we help? I mean, how do we do these pop-up things?
Yeah, I think, like you plan an event, it would be great to do it in a collaborative way. Bring in resources, bring in partner agencies. I think Open Design, would be very interested in coming together with different organizations to bring in the resources, because that requires resources. I think Northeast Renaissance does a really great job at, that's an example of placemaking, the open,
Is it One OKC?
One OKC, I almost called it Open Streets. That is that's not them.
Yeah.
One OKC. And doing the Open Streets concept and bringing in the festival and the vendors and the live acts and musicians, like that is a really great example on a larger scale of what placemaking could look like. But it can also be done in smaller scales too, but it does take someone managing it, someone pulling it together, coordinating, money, it takes resources. And so I think it can be done though, and it just takes collaboration and creativity.
I'm excited about it. How do we get in contact if somebody? Well, first of all, here's the thing. I know this is. I'm not asking how much you do.
Yeah.
But in this space, we need to get young people excited about it. What kind of income can they expect to make between what and what?
Oh wow! Being a city planner, you can make really good money. It just depends. It's so subjective.
I know.
It depends on
money?
Experience.
Right.
I mean, you can make up a 6-figure salary. It just kind of depends what you do. Architects is a lot more project based, and so a lot of people that are architects will open up their own firms and go after projects. You can make a lot of great money that way. You can make a very fruitful career depending on the pathway that you take.
Y'all hear that, young people?
Yes.
This is a job for you. This is a job for you.
Yeah.
Right. What am I missing? I forget to ask you. I feel like it's something so
no,
much
you asked
more.
all the great questions. You asked all good questions.
I did. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So thank you so much for joining
social
me.
media.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
you got to share the social media for both Cut It Forward,
and
and for the collaborative.
Open Design.
Open Design,
So Cut It Forward is on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's Cut It Forward on everything. Open Design Collective, we're actually going through a rebrand, and so we don't have our social media up, but South of 8th has social media established.
Okay.
So South of 8th on everything, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And then Black Space Oklahoma also has Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and a website, blackspaceoklahoma.com.
Blackspace Oklahoma.
Blackspaceok.com.
All right, I got it.
Yes.
I got it. Thanks so much to Spike Coffee for hosting us at the
Thank
last
you.
minute, and we
Wonderful.
love being here. I'll be here
Yes.
probably tomorrow morning with the meeting, all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much. It's
Thank
all about
you.
community, and look everything up.
Yes.
We'll see you later. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.